My measure of how touristy something is the price of beer.
You don't want to rent a scooter here. Watch someone fall like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, right next to the restaurant. Two people collide 2 feet from us. One thing that I would encourage anyone that's coming to Hanoi to do is to not... I kind of feel like that's the type of thing that would make Anthony Bourdain turn over in his grave.
As you can tell by our surroundings, we are in Hanoi.
Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Max.
I'm Maren.
And we're Voyager. We post weekly videos with travel tips, hotel reviews, and videos from some of our favorite destinations around the world. So if you don't already, consider subscribing. And of course, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It helps us produce more videos. This is a little bit of a new format for us. So first off, we're gonna start with, Maren, what do you think about Hanoi?
Hanoi was a huge surprise for me. I actually didn't think I'd like it. I'm not a big city person, generally speaking, and just coming here has been such a surprise. It is so vibrant and the food is so good. I almost wish we'd stayed longer.
Honestly, I'm so glad that we came back.
Yeah.
So a little bit of background. We flew into Hanoi, spent, what, 4 nights here, 3 nights here? And then we didn't quite feel like we were ready to make a video because we just landed in Hanoi and we'd been in Vietnam for a few days, but we didn't really have a lot of cultural context, and it felt like making a video in Hanoi would be almost too soon, and we wanted to capture it. We wanted to get the full experience, and so we went to Halong Bay, we went to Ninh Binh, we went up to Sapa, we kind of did a little tour, and now we're back, and we're really glad to be back.
I'm so glad to be back. I mean, honestly, just overall impressions, like, I love this place. I love the city. It feels, you know, when you watch those Anthony Bourdain episodes from Vietnam, you feel that energy so much more, I don't know, than some other places that he's been, and I totally get it.
And I think the thing too is, like I described it earlier, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, crossing the street here is one of the craziest things you can ever imagine. There are people flying in every direction, and you just kind of go with the flow. It's Buddhism in its purest form, right? It's be water.
It's true.
Just
honestly,
move through the traffic.
I almost feel like it's go with the flow in every aspect. It's like the food, like what you're eating at what time of day. Everything's just kind of like you eat what you want, you do what you want. You kind of move with the flow of the literal traffic. It's really cool.
It's very cool, and I can't say enough, I think, how much we've enjoyed it. But really the point of this video is to tell you what you should look for before you book, depending on what kind of person you are, what you're interested in, how long we think you should spend in Hanoi, and how it's kind of a kicking off point to Vietnam. It teaches you a lot about Vietnam, is an access point in terms of geography. It makes it very easy to get from place to place, and you can decide from Hanoi whether or not you spend extra nights in places outside of Hanoi or whether or not you just do day trips. And we have a lot of opinions on that. We'll talk a little bit about it, but I think the first thing we want to start with is the food, right? Do we want to start with the food?
Well, I was going to start with how long to stay, because that kind of dictates the food, right?
That's fair.
So how long is too long for Hanoi? I mean, he's just thinking about food. We just did a food tour. Don't mind him.
So there's 2 aspects to how long is too long. To me, I think it's a lot.
So let's say
it's a lot. It's overwhelming. I mean, there's an aspect to it where there's so much going on all at once that it's stressful. You feel like things are coming at you on all sides. And I think one of the interesting takeaways that we had is because we were here and then we left, and when I left, I was like, thank God, I couldn't handle it, honestly, for like 1 more minute. And we went straight to Ninh Binh and we had nature, and it felt so good to have fresh air. But then after 2 weeks kind of hopping around and all that, we were kind of looking at our plans, and there was this moment where we thought we're gonna skip.
Yeah,
right?
we were gonna go straight to Halong Bay.
Yeah, we thought, okay, well, on the way back, we want to spend more time in Sapa, and Maren wasn't feeling well, and so we were like, okay, why don't we'll just call it, we're gonna go straight from Sapa to Halong Bay. And that kind of was sad.
Yeah.
Both of us felt like, oh, damn, we're gonna miss out on Hanoi. And so I guess when you're talking about how many days you're gonna spend here, there's a lot of ways you can do it. If you're coming here for a week, I think you can spend as little as a night, right? I mean, if you're flying in early morning and you spend 1 night, and then you leave in the evening on a night bus or a night train or a late car, an evening car to Sapa or Halong Bay or Ninh Binh, it gives you kind of a kicking off point where you spent 2 full days. And for a lot of people, that can be honestly more than enough.
Yeah, it's probably more than enough for a lot of people.
You can hit the highlights.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of the great food.
You're not getting like deep in there, but you're getting a good highlight.
But I think for a lot of people, it's enough.
Yeah,
you know? But on the other hand, if you're really into the food.
Yeah, it's hard to like top the food in Hanoi. I mean, we've had great food, obviously, in all of Vietnam, but the food here is it doesn't really even matter where you go. It's just really good.
And not to say that there's not a lot of cultural experiences here as well. There's some very interesting things. I mean, we had the opportunity while we were here to go to the Temple of Literature,
Yeah, let's talk a
Confucius's
little
Temple
bit
of
about
Literature.
what to do while you're here.
What were kind of some of your highlights?
Well, there's a lot of history in Hanoi. I mean, it's the capital. It's the first temple of Confucius is here, the first university, Temple of Literature. It's a really, really cool experience, and there's Ho Chi Minh's mausoleum is here, and they're all very walkable, easy to get to, and it's really cheap to visit these historical sites. So I really did enjoy that. If you watch some of our other videos, we do a lot of the Maldives and some of these kind of resort destinations. So it's really cool to get to do something a little bit different. And then the shopping is really good.
Shopping's great.
So if it were me, I would dedicate like a day to kind of temples and history and learning and all of that fun stuff. And then like a day to shopping. Not only is there like fake shopping, like good fake stuff, like love it. But there's also just really good stores, so if you can't make it to Sapa, for example, there's tons of the Sapa hemp stores here. So you can still get a lot of that cool fabrics and the textures and all the things that Sapa's famous for without going, which, pros and cons, but great shopping.
I think that's one of the things we noticed was coming back to Hanoi. Another thing was we were less overwhelmed because we'd already been, and you started to notice how many stores there were and how much diversity there was. I mean, you can buy art, you can buy silks, you can buy handcrafted things, you can buy knockoffs. There's a lot of that. I guess it's questionable if they're called knockoffs, if they're manufactured in Vietnam and end up in a store somewhere. But there's layers to that story. But the point is there's a lot of shopping to do. You can also buy suitcases in case you shop too much, which we did.
Which we did. I don't regret it.
I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
I don't regret it at all. But back to the highlight.
Yeah. What was
food.
your highlight? Yeah.
The food. The food's the highlight.
Yeah.
I think hands down. I mean, the food is fantastic. And I think one thing that I would encourage anyone that's coming to Hanoi to do is to not exclusively rely on places that are
famous.
Oh,
apparently, according to the locals, bless Obama and Anthony Bourdain, but apparently that restaurant has really gone downhill. So there's a lot of amazing buncha places in town, and apparently that is not one anymore.
But regardless of whether or not it's not good, we didn't actually go, so we can't speak to whether or not
Fair.
it's good or not good,
Fair.
I feel like.
Fair.
But what I will say is, if you don't know what we're talking about, there's from one of Anthony Bourdain's last seasons, he was with Obama, they ate in Vietnam, in Hanoi, at this buncha restaurant. And buncha is actually, right now we're at a buncha restaurant. Buncha. It's one of the best things you can get in Hanoi.
It's my favorite food in Hanoi.
Unbelievable. And it's great here at this particular place.
Yeah.
It's great at a number of other places we
Yeah.
went. We went on a food
Across the
tour
street,
and had
really
great
good.
buncha.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they have a glass-covered table of where Obama and Anthony Bourdain sat, and like it's commemorating a piece of history. But a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's the place you have to go to get buncha." I kind of feel like that's the type of thing that would make Anthony Bourdain turn over in his grave.
Probably.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's
Yeah.
like the exact opposite
Yeah.
of what the ethos of all of his shows
Yeah.
were, right? It was about discovery. It was about finding those little niches and the holes in the wall, and there are so many.
Yeah, actually that brings up a good point, because right now we're sitting in kind of a famous area called like Train Street. This area has a ton of good food. The restaurants are super low key, very like casual, as you can see, plastic chairs, tables, that kind of thing. But there's actually a lot of different neighborhoods in Hanoi.
Yeah.
So, if you're looking for kind of low key, like great buncha, less than $1 kind of a meal, this is definitely, I think, my area of recommendation is Train Street area.
Well, and it's not that this isn't touristy. This is
It's
super touristy.
but it's just good.
But it's interesting, it's not as touristy as if you go to the old city.
Yeah, if you go into more of the old quarter, like down
Quarter.
into the old quarter, it is also extremely touristy.
My
It's
measure
great.
of how touristy something is the price of beer.
Yeah,
So
sure.
beer increasingly goes up. I think beer here is probably, what, 20K? 20,000 dong,
20.
which is less than $1. So
Yeah.
like 80 cents, 90 cents, we'll put up the actual amount. But if you go over there, it's like 40.
Like 30 or 40.
But then they have happy hour,
Yeah.
and then they're like advertising,
Yeah.
oh, happy hour is like 25.
Yeah.
But you're still paying more there than you're
True.
gonna pay here.
But there's also a whole other side to Hanoi, which is the city center area, which we'll talk about where we're staying in a second. But the city center area is kind of more like metropolitan. They have more restaurants that are, traditional style, like as in like like Western traditional style, like real seats and, you know, ambiance and that kind of thing. If that's what you're looking for, like fancy restaurants, there's some Michelin rated restaurants down there. And that is a whole other side to Hanoi that we literally discovered the night that we were going to Sapa. And now we
found the
came back.
most amazing little restaurant. Just stumbled on it because a friend had dropped a pin on a map for us.
Years ago.
Years ago.
Yeah, still there. And Le Badien, I'm butchering that.
Yeah, Le Badien. It was fabulous.
Excellent. Yeah, Michelin rated. I mean, this place was incredible. And the food
It's a
is
Michelin
completely-
guide. It's not a
guide,
Michelin
excuse
star,
me.
but it's Michelin
Yeah,
guide
Michelin guide.
restaurant.
Yeah, and I mean, the food was incredible. It was like French, you know, pretty much fully French food. Amazing.
It was a mixture. It was, let's call it Vietnamese inspired
French
fine dining.
Yeah, and that was incredible. And then our hotel, pretty much across the street from there, they just reopened the hotel after a huge renovation, Movenpick. They have a restaurant, Au Macanese.
That place is amazing.
That place is definitely gunning for a star because that food is incredible. And that's not Vietnamese at all. That was Portuguese and Cantonese, which is an incredible combination. But that was incredibly high-end dining. So honestly, Hanoi has everything.
I think the thing is it's competitive, right? You have to be a great restaurant in order to have people come because everybody has a restaurant. And so it's actually interesting because we got a little bit of information about that today on our food tour. A lot of it has to do with real estate. People buy the building, and because they own the building and that's where they live, they have their whole family living on all the floors, and then they open either a restaurant or a shop or something in the bottom floor. And that's pretty much universal, it seems like. And so because of that, though, there's so many restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly endless.
But if you're going to be that place that all of a sudden has fine dining, and you're going to charge those prices for fine dining, you have to compete. You have to be able to compete. You're not just competing against the other fine dining restaurants in the area. You're competing against these little stalls.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, honestly, the food culture here. But yeah, I mean, I'd say, you know, whether you have 2 days or 5 days, 7 days here, I would allocate ample time.
I think 7 days would be.
That'd be a lot. That'd be aggressive. I'm just saying, I don't know.
But it's not a lot if you're a city person and you're looking to kick off some trips from Hanoi. You could do that. It wouldn't be my recommendation because at the end of the day, I think some of the places we went outside of the city that a lot of people do day tours to. You can check out our Ninh Binh video and our Sapa video. We're also going to put out a Halong Bay video. A lot of those have kind of day trips where you go from Hanoi, and at the end of the day, I feel like...
You're not really doing it justice.
Yeah, it just doesn't do those places enough justice to just kind of go in and go out. And then you're stuck with the big tour groups and the people in the orange life preservers.
Max hates orange life preservers. But yes, I know. I
they
totally
do force
agree.
you to wear them here, by the way. If you go on a boat or something like that, like you pretty much don't have a choice.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you on the day trip thing. I think honestly, I'd spend 3 nights max. You know, if you have a shorter trip, I would do the food tour, which we'll link the one we did below, which was amazing.
Definite must
book. Definite food. Honestly, I would just do it like day one, like just do it, because then you know exactly what to eat and what to look for. But
I think it's a good idea because I think we didn't do that, and
we just stumbled around and we did find a lot of what he showed us, but it would have been nice to do earlier.
It would have been nice because we would have found out some of the things that we were missing maybe, and then we would have known other things to look for. But I mean, we have 2 weeks left.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, we still got a lot of time. But yeah, I mean, so definitely like food tour. I would do a day of like the cultural stuff, you know, and then I would do some shopping. And a lot of stuff kind of stays open late here. I mean, things don't close until like 10 p.m. in some cases. So definitely like shopping and things like that. I would just wear yourself out in Hanoi.
Honestly, just wander around and get lost.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
It's like a very safe city.
It's so safe. I mean, honestly, I think that's a really important thing for people to understand is that you don't feel unsafe here. Walking around on the streets, I mean, there's a degree of inherent danger from just, your mind is telling you no, right? But you're like, okay, I must walk across the street. But in terms of like crime and theft, it doesn't seem like that's a huge issue. And if you read about it, it is a safe city. And we felt very comfortable pretty much the entire time we've been here. We haven't really ever felt threatened or unsafe like we have in a lot of other countries.
Yeah, that's been a big surprise here. So it's just great. You can essentially, I mean, it's funny, like the Vietnamese people here tell you like, oh, you're walking a mile? Like you can't walk that far, that's so far. And you're like,
to be fair, the sidewalks are pretty intense.
Yeah, it's mostly just because the sidewalks here are taken up by cars and scooters and restaurants and things. But I mean, it is a very easy safe place to get around in general.
That being said, if you are going to rent a scooter and
gosh,
you're
just
interested in
don't.
doing that, if you really want to rent a scooter, go outside of the city. Go to Ninh, go to Sapa, go to Nha Giang and do the loop.
Hanjing.
Hanjiang. We didn't actually go there, so I don't quite have the name nailed down. But go to the countryside and go to the mountains because
don't rent one here.
where it's great to ride a scooter. Here, unless you're, and even if you are,
We literally
somebody,
just watched someone fall like 10 minutes ago.
yeah, I mean, like right next to the restaurant, two people collided.
Yeah.
2 feet from us.
I mean, literally, like, it's crazy. So, yeah, I wouldn't do that here.
It's just there's so much going on that even if you are an expert and
Yeah.
you know exactly what you're doing,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like it's worth the risk.
No,
it's
it's
easy
not.
to get around.
Yeah.
There's you can walk, you can take the little carts. We had such a
Yeah.
fun time taking
Yeah.
the little cart.
So fun. Yeah, and also there's not, the distance between the areas you want to go anyway are not that far. Like, it's basically just City Center, Old Quarter, and Train Street, and like Westlake if you want to go into like kind of the expat area, which is apparently very beautiful. It's great sunsets. It's raining, so no sunset for us, but that is also, but everything is so close. It's not really, you don't want to rent a scooter here. It's just not safe.
So what have we not covered?
Hotels, our bread and butter, where to stay. And, like I was just saying with the neighborhoods being so close together, there's a lot of hotels to choose from, and it's actually really overwhelming. I mean, I, like everyone else, have to do a lot of research to find the right places to stay. And the first time when we first got here, we stayed at the Grand Mercure, which is kind of on the edge of Old Quarter. It's a bit of a hike. It's right next to the Temple of Literature, which is one of the reasons I chose it, because it's right next to one of the most historic sites in Hanoi, and it's close enough to the Old Quarter. It was a good jumping off point, but we did it differently the second time. I actually ended up canceling a booking we had in Old Quarter for the second time around because, on the night train to Sapa, we found the Movenpick, which had just literally opened like that day that we were going to the train to Sapa. It had opened that day, which is crazy. So I just rebooked there. I would 100% recommend staying in that area. It's right around the area where Capella and the Sofitel Legend are. Those are the highest end properties in Hanoi. Movenpick is a great price point, and it's literally next to the train station. So that's where I would stay.
The Grand Mercure was a great option too, though. I
the
loved that
rooms
hotel.
were-
It was brand new. It had, practically just opened.
Yeah.
It was right next to the Temple of Literature, so that made it very easy.
So walkable to the mausoleum too.
Yeah, it made it easy to just pop down there and check it out. It was walkable to most things. I don't think we realized maybe how far the French Quarter was or how
Old Quarter.
aggressive of a walk that was in terms of, again, just the traffic and the craziness and the lack of sidewalks because there's just everything is on the sidewalks. I think that if you were just going to spend a couple days, I think it's fine if you're hopping around with cabs. But yeah, the Movenpick seems to be in general a better
It's
pick.
just a fabulous location, and it's honestly such a good price too. It's
Yeah.
just like a great price point.
It's expensive. I mean,
Yeah.
for Vietnam, it's
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah. Hanoi is not cheap.
Hanoi, yeah, that's also true.
That's the thing. It's like Hanoi is really not a cheap city for lodging.
For lodging.
Super cheap. But luxury things in Hanoi are very expensive. But their prices start at like $130, which for Vietnam is a lot. But if you're coming here as like a luxury traveler and you're going to book the Four Seasons or something in Hoi An, like
it's really not
that's
going to break
really
the
not
bank.
that bad.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not going to break the bank.
Capella.
It's a little on the pricey side.
Yeah.
And so is the Sofitel. The
Yeah,
Sofitel is quite
Sofitel is
expensive as well.
significantly more expensive.
We didn't stay at either of those hotels. We can't necessarily speak to them. We have heard from people that they're absolutely wonderful and they're beautiful. I think.
But honestly, to do what you want to do in Hanoi, picking a solid hotel option is great. And I don't think you need that much. It's not like you're looking for a resort in Hanoi because you're going to spend most of your time out of the hotel exploring insane, crazy city.
I think the most important thing is comfort. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you have a very overwhelming day and you need to come back to something comfortable.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I really did like about both of the hotels that we chose, they both had club levels, and we booked the club level in both of those, and it allowed us to kind of have a
Nice to
lounge
digest.
experience that we could go back to and relax, and it was kind of super quiet.
Quiet is good.
That was
Yeah,
nice.
it was really nice. Yeah, I mean, I think overall, like 100%. And funny enough, both hotels we stayed at are core properties, and they have a great loyalty program, so there's that too. But they're really quiet because they're not inside the Old Quarter. and you're just outside. It adds
Just far enough outside.
It honestly adds like a cone of silence. Like it's really crazy. Yeah, I love the Movenpick property. That's probably where I would stay.
But of course, as you know, the hotels are our bread and butter, and we do hotel reviews, which we do post on our website. If we haven't done a video review, you can always check our website because we do a review, a written review for every hotel that'll include our photos, and you can also check out on Instagram. We have our highlights. If you scroll back through them, you'll find a highlight for nearly every single place I think we've stayed. So
yeah.
It's really easily accessible through the website. That'll also take you to Instagram. That's kind of the easiest way to do it. And for resort destinations coming up in Vietnam, we will have hotel reviews. We also did one for Sapa. I honestly think it was one of the coolest places we've ever stayed.
Yeah, and if you already follow us on Instagram, you will have seen that entire story on our highlight and our feed. So if you don't already, be sure to follow us at Voyager Guru and check out our website. As Max mentioned, we have all the written hotel reviews at voyagerguru.com. And as always, I'm Maren.
And I'm Max.
We're Voyager Guru. See you out there. Cheers.